Hey, I'm Emma. Welcome to Emma's Betrayal Stories now. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories aren't rushed. They're the kind you sit with. Today's story comes with an update and my own personal opinions throughout the story. Let me know in the comments if you agree or see it differently. Let's begin.
When my family ignored my wedding, I threw a lavish celebration without them and loved it. My bouquet was so tightly clenched my knuckles went pale, and all I could see from behind the gauzy edge of my veil was the front row. 3 empty seats where my parents and my brother were supposed to be. The ushers had tried to space things out so it wouldn't look obvious, but you can't disguise absence at a wedding. Absence has weight. It presses on the air. I heard the string quartet start the first slow notes, and instead of feeling that floating, movie moment happiness, I felt my stomach fold in on itself, like I'd swallowed a stone. Aaron's hand was warm against mine, his thumb rubbing the side of my palm the way he does when he can tell I'm spiraling, and I kept telling myself, just walk, but my eyes were stuck on those empty seats like they were a trapdoor. Someone behind me whispered, "Where are her parents?" And it hit my ears like a slap. It was supposed to be simple. Not cheap, simple. A garden ceremony at the little vineyard outside town, dinner under lights, dancing until our feet hurt, and the kind of photos that look like we're laughing for real because we would be. I'd spend the morning being pinned into shapewear and sprayed with hairspray so stiff my scalp felt tight, and I'd listen to my bridesmaids chatter about centerpieces and playlists while my phone sat face down on the vanity like an unexploded device. 10 minutes before the ceremony, I finally looked. 3 missed calls from my mother. 1 from my father. A text from my brother. "We're not coming.
Don't make a scene."
I stared at it until the words went blurry, and I actually felt my face go numb. Like my body didn't know what expression to choose. I walked out onto the little back balcony of the bridal suite, the wooden boards warm under my shoes, and for a second I honestly thought I might throw up. Aaron found me there, still in his suit jacket, tie slightly crooked because he'd been pacing. He didn't ask me to calm down. He just said, very quietly, "Tell me what you need." And I remember the way my voice came out flat when I said, "I need to get married anyway." We've been together for 6 years. I'm 29 now, and most of my adult life has been a slow tug-of-war between what I actually want and what my family thinks I should want. If you grew up in a family where love is conditional, you know how exhausting it is. You're always auditioning. You're always trying to anticipate the notes you'll be graded on. My parents are the kind of people who can sound generous while tightening a leash. They'll say, "We just want what's best," and what they mean is, "We want control so we don't feel anxious." My brother, Luke, is the golden child in the most predictable way, louder, needier, misunderstood, and somehow always the one who deserves grace. I'm the capable one, the responsible one, the one who shouldn't make things hard. Aaron was the first person who looked at me living like that and said, "That's not love. That's management." My parents didn't like Aaron from the start, but not for a concrete reason they could say out loud without sounding bad. They didn't like that he didn't flatter them. They didn't like that he wasn't impressed by my dad's stories. They didn't like that he would ask me what I wanted and then actually treat my answer as real. At first they did that thing where they were polite but constantly pointed out concerns. Aaron didn't have the right job title. Aaron's family wasn't like ours. Aaron wanted to move apartments when my mother was convinced I should live 5 minutes from her. When we got engaged, my mother hugged me too tightly and immediately asked, "When will you set the date?" Like she needed to lock it down before I changed my mind. Then she started dictating the wedding like it was a group project she deserved to lead. I tried to compromise. That's my toxic talent. I let her pick the guest list for the family side. I went to tastings I didn't care about because she wanted a specific cake baker. I listened to her talk about which relatives would be offended if I didn't invite them, even though I hadn't spoken to some of them in years. I thought if I give them a few things, they'll show up for the important part. I thought showing up was the baseline. Then, 3 months before the wedding, Luke crashed his car. Again. Not badly enough to be seriously injured, just badly enough to be dramatic and expensive. My parents became consumed by it. He needed money. He needed help. He needed them to rescue him from consequences, like always. And suddenly my wedding became stressful timing. My mother started making little comments on phone calls. You know your father's worried about finances. You know Luke's really struggling. Do you really need the vineyard? It's a bit extra. Extra. Meanwhile, Luke was posting photos on Instagram in a new leather jacket, smirking like a teenager. 2 weeks before the wedding, my dad asked if we could move some things around. He said it casually, like rearranging my wedding day was as simple as shifting a dinner reservation. When I asked what he meant, he said, Luke has a court date that week.
He's going to be stressed.
I stared at my dad across my parents' kitchen table while my mother stirred tea like it was all normal, and I said, my wedding is not movable. It's booked. It's paid for. My mother sighed like I'd been difficult. My father said, you always choose the hard way. That line stayed in my head for days. The hard way. The hard way, apparently, is expecting your family to treat your wedding like it matters. The week of the wedding, my mother went quiet. She didn't text me updates about relatives. She didn't ask about seating charts. She didn't do her usual hovering. I told myself she was busy. I told myself not to spiral. Aaron asked me twice, are you sure they're coming? And I snapped at him the second time because I couldn't handle the idea that he might be right. The morning of the wedding, my mom texted, call me when you have a minute. That was it. No, I'm so excited. No, I can't wait.
Just businesslike.
I called her while my hair was half curled and my friend Mina was pinning my veil. My mother's voice was tight. We're not comfortable with this, she said. With what? I asked, stupidly, because I genuinely didn't understand what new problems she'd invented. With how you've handled everything, she said. You've been selfish. You've made this about you. I laughed once, shocked. It is about me, I said, then immediately hated myself for sounding like I was pleading my case. My mother continued, as if she hadn't heard me. Your father and I have decided it's best if we don't attend. We won't support a marriage built on disrespect. My vision went weirdly bright. Disrespect, I repeated. You know what you've done, she said. Luke needs us. I heard Mina behind me go completely still, like even she could sense something awful through my expression. My mouth opened and closed twice before sound came out. So, because Luke crashed his car, I said, you're skipping my wedding. My mother's voice sharpened. Don't simplify it. I wanted to scream. Instead, I heard myself say, if you don't come, I will never forget it. There was a pause. Then my mother said, that's your choice. She hung up. I stood in my childhood bedroom because, yes, I'd gotten ready at my parents' house like an idiot who still believes in traditions, and I looked at my reflection and couldn't recognize my face. My cheeks were flushed, eyes shiny, lipstick too perfect for what I felt. Mina asked, very softly, what happened? I said, they're not coming. And when I said it out loud, it became real in a way that made my knees feel weak. Mina swore under her breath. Then she did something I'll never forget. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and said, give me their numbers. Like she was ready to fight. I didn't give them to her. Not because I didn't want her to. Because some part of me still wanted to protect them. Even then, Aaron picked me up an hour later, and I didn't tell him until we were in the car. My voice shook when I said, they aren't coming. He didn't slam the steering wheel. He didn't curse my parents. He just went quiet, jaw tightening, and then he said, okay, then we're going to do this surrounded by people who actually love you. At the venue, my phone kept buzzing. Missed calls, texts. My dad, don't do anything you'll regret. Luke, stop being dramatic. My mother, we hope you make the right decision. Like my marriage was a test. When the coordinator asked if we wanted to delay while we waited, I heard myself say, no, it was the first clean word I'd said all day. So I walked down the aisle anyway. My friends stood on both sides like a wall of support. Aaron's parents cried openly, no shame. His dad reached out and squeezed my shoulder as I passed, like he was silently saying, you're safe here. And yes, there were empty seats. But there were also filled ones, People who showed up because they wanted to, not because they were performing family duty. The ceremony happened in a blur of sunlight and vows and the smell of crushed grass. When Aaron said, "I choose you," he looked at me like he was anchoring me to something real. I didn't cry until the officiant pronounced us married, and then it hit me all at once. This mix of grief and relief so strong my chest shook. I kept smiling for photos while my insides felt scraped raw. At the reception, people danced. People ate.
People laughed.
There were moments when I forgot my family hadn't come, and then I'd see the empty spot on the family table, and it would punch me again. Around 9 p.m., I stepped outside behind the barn and sat on a wooden bench in the dark, the fairy lights above me swaying slightly in the breeze. My dress pulled around my knees. My feet hurt. The night smelled like wine and dirt and someone's cigarette. Aaron found me again. He sat beside me without speaking. After a minute, he said, "Do you want to leave?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "I want to remember that they didn't get to take this from me." That sentence surprised me as I said it. It sounded like a person I wanted to become. When we got home from our mini honeymoon, 3 nights at a coastal hotel because we'd blown our budget and I didn't care, the messages started. My mother sent a long text about how she was hurt by my behavior. My dad wrote, "We need to talk about boundaries." Luke sent, "Hope the tantrum was worth it." Then, a week later, my aunt forwarded me a family group chat screenshot by accident. I don't think she meant to. But there it was, my mother telling relatives, we couldn't support it because Maya has been manipulated. My father replying, "She'll come around." Luke sending laughing emojis, I'm not quoting them. Just know they were there, and saying, "She'll be broke by next month anyway." I stared at those messages for a long time. Not because I was shocked, because it confirmed something I'd been avoiding. They didn't just miss my wedding. They chose to punish me. That's when the idea formed, not as revenge, exactly, but as reclamation. If they wanted to treat my wedding like something unworthy of their presence, then I was going to stop treating their presence like something I needed to earn. Aaron and I had originally planned a small family dinner after the honeymoon, the polite kind where you show photos and thank people. I canceled it. Instead, I started planning something else, a celebration that was purely for us and the people who showed up for us. No family politics.
No obligatory invites. No pretending.
We called it a post-wedding gala, partly as a joke. Then it stopped being a joke when I booked a rooftop venue downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows, a DJ, and a caterer that served tiny fancy desserts like edible jewelry. I found a second dress, shorter, sparkly, ridiculous in a way my mother would have hated. I hired a photographer again because why not? I ordered a cake shaped like a champagne tower because it made me laugh. I printed invitations that said, "Thank you for choosing us. Now let's celebrate."
People came. So many people came.
Not just the friends from the wedding, but co-workers, neighbors, Aaron's cousins, Mina's partner, Tess, and her girlfriend, the nurse I used to nanny for who always treated me like I mattered. It wasn't stiff. It wasn't formal. It was joy with teeth. Halfway through the night, the DJ played a song Aaron and I loved, and we danced in the center of the room while everyone formed a loose circle around us, clapping and cheering, and I felt something in my chest unclench that I hadn't realized was locked. I laughed so hard I had to wipe mascara from the corner of my eye. I didn't think about my mother's absence. I didn't wonder what my father would say. I just existed in the life I was building. And yes, I posted photos.
Not to taunt them.
Because I was done hiding my happiness like it was a provocation. That's where I'm going to stop the main story midway, because this is the moment where I was finally happy, and then my family noticed I was happy without them, and that's when the real war started. I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. Skipping your child's wedding is emotional violence dressed up as principles. My parents didn't miss a random dinner. They missed the one day you're supposed to show up and say, "I'm here, I love you, I've got you." Even if you're annoyed about centerpieces or seating charts or whatever weird control issues you have. And Luke is the kind of person who grows fat off the attention around crisis. He didn't just enjoy that my parents chose him. He participated in humiliating me for it because it reinforces his position as the family's son that everyone orbits. What I loved about the rooftop celebration is that it wasn't a pity party. It was a decisive act. I refused to let absence be the dominant theme of my marriage. I refused to let my family be the gatekeepers of joy. And that scares families like mine, because they rely on the idea that you need them more than they need you. The moment you're genuinely happy without their approval, their leverage evaporates. People love to call things like this revenge, but it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like breathing. It felt like I stopped whispering in my own life. If my parents had wanted a relationship with me, they could have just shown up. They could have said, "We're struggling, but we're here." Instead, they chose absence as punishment. So if they felt left out of the second celebration, that's not my cruelty. That's the natural consequence of refusing to be a prop in their family narrative. Update. Okay. I didn't think I'd need to update because I assumed they'd be mad, we'd cool off, and eventually we'd have the awkward sit-down where everyone pretends it was a misunderstanding. That's how my family usually operates. Do harm, refuse to name it, then demand closeness again without accountability. But my rooftop party photos hit Facebook and Instagram, and within an hour, my phone started ringing like I'd activated some kind of alarm. First it was my aunt. "Honey, did you have another wedding?" Then my cousin. "Your mom is losing her mind." Then my mother herself, leaving a voicemail that started with my name in that tight tone she uses when she wants to sound controlled, but isn't.
"Maya, call me. Now."
Aaron listened to the voicemails with me while we sat on our couch in sweatpants eating leftover cake, because we are apparently those people now. He didn't speak until my mom's third message, which was just, "How dare you?" followed by a sharp exhale like she was choking on rage. Aaron said calmly, "Do you want to answer?" I stared at my phone. The screen felt hot in my hand. "No," I said. "But I also don't want this hanging over us." So I called my parents on speaker with Aaron sitting next to me, one hand on my knee. My mother answered on the second ring like she'd been holding her phone, waiting. "So," she said, voice trembling, "you had a celebration. Without us." "Yes," I said. My father's voice cut in from the background. "You posted it publicly," he said, like that was the crime. I kept my voice steady. "It was a party," I said. "Yes, I posted photos." My mother made a sound like a laugh, but not really. "A party," she repeated. "You threw a party to replace your family." I felt my jaw tighten. "You replaced yourselves," I said, "by not coming to my wedding." My mother's voice rose. "We didn't come because you were disrespectful," she snapped. "Because you chose a man who isolates you from your family." Aaron's hand tightened on my knee, but he didn't speak. I inhaled slowly. "You didn't come because Luke needed attention," I said. My father snapped. "Don't bring Luke into this." "I'm bringing him into it because he's the reason you weren't there," I said. "You told me. You said Luke needed you." My mother's voice turned sharp and fast. "And he did," she said. "He was in crisis. He crashed his car," I said. "That's not a crisis that requires missing your daughter's wedding. That's a consequence." There was a brief silence, and in it I could hear my dad's breathing. Then my father said, "Your mother is heartbroken." I almost laughed, but it came out like a bitter cough. "I was heartbroken," I said. "On my wedding day. And you didn't care." My mother started crying. Real crying, not delicate sniffles. "You don't understand what you've done," she said. "People are talking. Our relatives saw those photos. They're asking questions." And there it was. The real wound. Not missing me. Being asked about it. I said, "Good." My father's voice went cold. "You don't get to punish us." I felt something in me settle. "I didn't punish you," I said. "I adjusted my life to fit reality." My mother sobbed harder. "We're your parents," she said. "We deserve to be included." I stared at the wall across from me, at the faint smudge where our old bookshelf used to be, and I realized how deep that entitlement runs. Deserve. Like love is a membership perk. I said, Then why didn't you come? My mother hiccuped. My father didn't answer. Instead, my father said, "We want to meet. In person." Aaron leaned in slightly, and I knew he was bracing. I was too. I agreed, because I wanted to end the loop. We met at a cafe 2 days later. Neutral territory. My parents arrived together like a united front. My mother wore lipstick and that stiff smile she uses when she wants to appear fine. My father looked tired but determined. They didn't ask about the party. They didn't ask about the honeymoon. They didn't ask about how I'd felt standing in a dress I paid for while they chose absence. They started with, "We need to move forward." That phrase makes my skin crawl now. My father said, "We were hurt by your choices." My mother nodded dramatically. "You've changed," she said. "You used to care about family." I sipped my coffee, so I wouldn't interrupt. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Then my mother did the thing I didn't expect. She slid an envelope across the table.
"For you," she said.
I looked at it. My name was written in her neat handwriting. My stomach tightened. "What is this?" "A gift," she said. "For your marriage." I opened it carefully. Inside was a check. A large one. Aaron's eyebrows rose. He didn't touch it. My mother watched my face like she was waiting for gratitude to soften me. "We didn't want to give it at the wedding," she said, voice syrupy. "Not with everything, but we want to show we support you."
"Support you."
After skipping the wedding and calling me manipulated, I stared at the check. It was dated after the rooftop party. And suddenly it clicked. This wasn't generosity. This was a lever. My father said, "If we're contributing to your life, we need to be included. We need respect." There it was. I slid the check back into the envelope and pushed it toward them. "No," I said. My mother's smile fell. "Excuse me? I'm not accepting money with strings," I said. My father's eyes narrowed. "It's not strings," he said. "It's family. It's control," I said. My mother's face flushed. "How dare you?" she said, voice rising enough that the woman at the next table glanced over. Aaron finally spoke, calm but firm. "We're not comfortable taking money that comes with conditions," he said. My father ignored Aaron completely, classic, and looked at me. "So, you're choosing him again," he said, like Aaron was a weapon I was using. I felt heat rise in my chest, but my voice stayed steady. "I'm choosing myself," I said. For once. My mother's eyes filled with tears again, but her mouth stayed tight. "You're punishing us," she said. "I'm protecting my peace," I said. My father leaned forward. "If you keep doing this," he said, "you'll lose your family." And I realized something in that moment. They'd been saying that my whole life like it was a threat. But what they meant was, "You'll lose access to us." As if access to them was always worth the cost. I stood up, hands slightly trembling now. "You already made that choice," I said. "On my wedding day." We left the cafe. Aaron held my hand on the sidewalk. I didn't cry. I felt clean. Like I'd finally stopped trying to win an impossible game. That's the update. They didn't just get mad about being excluded. They tried to buy their way back into the center, and when I refused, they threatened me with the same old fear, loss of family, like family hadn't already been absent when I needed them. Now I'll finish the story. Back to the story. After the cafe, my parents went on a campaign. My aunt called me and said my mother was sick with stress. My cousin texted that my dad was telling people Aaron controls me. Luke sent a message that said, "Enjoy your fake family." I didn't reply to any of it. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I blocked Luke. It was such a small action physically. One tap. But emotionally, it felt like moving a boulder off my chest. The silence afterward was loud at first. My brain kept reaching for the next incoming insult like a reflex. Aaron and I sat at our kitchen table that night with a notebook and wrote down what we wanted our life to look like in 5 years. Not what my parents wanted. Not what Luke would mock. What we wanted. It felt weird, like speaking a language I'd forgotten. We decided to host one more dinner. Not with my family, but with the people who'd shown up.
Mina.
Tess. Aaron's parents. A couple friends who drove hours for our wedding. We made a playlist. We cooked too much food. We put out the leftover champagne. At one point, Aaron's mom raised her glass and said, "To Maya," and she looked directly at me, eyes soft. "Thank you for letting us be here." I felt my throat tighten.
Ibling shit fast.
"Thank you for wanting to be," I said. A week later, my dad emailed me. Not texted. Emailed, like a formal complaint. He wrote that they were willing to reconcile if I apologized for publicly humiliating the family, and if I agreed that future celebrations would include them. He wrote that I was breaking your mother's heart. I read it, then I did something that would have horrified old me. I didn't respond immediately. I waited a full day. I let the panic pass. Then I wrote back, short, "I'm not apologizing for celebrating my marriage. If you want a relationship, acknowledge skipping my wedding and stop blaming Aaron. Until then, I'm taking space."
My mother didn't respond.
My dad didn't respond. The silence felt like punishment at first, then it started to feel like relief. Months passed. Holidays came. I spent the first holiday season in my life without my family, and it was strangely calm. We made dinner. We watched dumb movies. We went on a long walk and talked about nothing important.
No tensión. No excels.
No Luke making a joke at my expense while my parents laughed because it was easier than correcting him. Do I miss the idea of my family? Yes. I miss the version where parents show up, where siblings are allies, where weddings are celebrated instead of used as leverage. But I don't miss the reality. And I don't regret the lavish celebration for 1 second. Not because it was fancy, but because it proved something to me. My life doesn't have to be a negotiation. Joy doesn't have to be rationed out based on whether I've performed obedience. My family ignored my wedding to make a point. I threw a celebration without them to make a different point. I'm not waiting for their permission to be happy anymore. Your parents skipping your wedding isn't a disagreement. It's a deliberate choice to wound you at the exact moment you're most exposed. My mom in this story is the kind of person who confuses anxiety with authority. She feels uneasy, so she thinks she gets to control. And when she can't control, she punishes. She didn't skip the wedding because she was genuinely devastated about some moral issue. She skipped because she wanted leverage. My dad is the quieter kind of manipulative. He speaks in respect and family values, but it's really about hierarchy. He wants the family to operate like a little kingdom where he and my mother are the rulers and the kids fall into line. Luke is just the predictable result of that system. He's the golden child who's been taught that consequences are optional if you make enough noise. He didn't just benefit from my parents choosing him, he enjoyed it. People like Luke treat other people's milestones like competition because it reminds them they're not the center of everything, and that's intolerable. Aaron, on the other hand, is the calm anchor every person from a chaotic family secretly dreams of. He didn't steal me from my family. He just stopped participating in the fantasy that my parents' control equals love. And me? I'm proud of the version of me who didn't beg them to come, who walked down the aisle anyway, who didn't accept the check with strings, who threw a second celebration and let herself enjoy it. Because, honestly, that's the part people don't talk about enough. Joy can be scary when you're used to earning it. Throwing that lavish party wasn't about rubbing it in. It was about proving to myself that absence doesn't get to be the headline of my marriage. If my parents wanted to be included, they had one job: show up. They chose not to. Then they tried to buy their way back into relevance and called it support. That's not support. That's a hostage note with nicer handwriting. So, yes, if they felt embarrassed when relatives asked why they weren't there, good. Let them sit in the discomfort they tried to hand me. Because maybe, for once, the consequences can belong to the people who caused the harm.